Our perception of color is a prime example of subjectivity. We can observe objective light of the world around us and incorporate it into our minds. This process we cannot yet verify is the same for everyone. Color is truly a personal experience. Because of this, color is inherently difficult to study and know about. Did our ancestors see and interact with colors the same way we do? What does it truly look like for a blind person? Or conversely, how do we talk to a colorblind person about the colors they've never seen? Like most things revealed, people feel lost when we learn about the rainbow's true nature, but maybe there is some beauty in unweaving the rainbow. You are listening to Mind the Gap, a podcast about science, skepticism, and trivia, bridging the gap between your minds and everything else. I'm Mackie Drew.
I'm Keegan Gwendolyn.
And I'm Ellysa Chenery.
And our show today is called A Study in Color. It's our show about color. We will be talking about how we see color and how colors change throughout history, and more specifically about the rainbow and how it was strained and explained over time. So, Keegan, why don't you start us off?
All right. Well, I figured that the most important part of color is that it's something that we perceive. It's a major component of sight, and naturally our eyes are our most important tool for detecting color. And our eyes contain two major types of light-detecting cells. The first is the rod cell, but this is mostly used in peripheral vision. It functions best in low light levels, and it's highly sensitive. It's about 100 times more sensitive than the other type of cell, which is called a cone. In fact, rods can respond to a single photon of light, which is staggeringly sensitive. This is also why if you're ever stargazing and you're looking for an object, it's best to look with your peripheral vision because your rods will be more able to detect it, more sensitive to the light coming from a very faint star than will your cones.
See, and I've been using a telescope this whole time.
You fool. These rods, however, play little or no role in color vision because they contain only one photosensitive pigment. Cones, on the other hand, are what we use most frequently. They're found in an area of our eye called the fovea, and they're densely packed there. And that's where most of our focused vision takes place. When we look directly at something, then we're using our cones to see them.
Are they so named because of their shape? Like, are they actually cones and rods?
They are, but it's not very distinctive.
It's like a biological cone and rod, not like a
Yeah.
geometric one. Yeah,
Exactly.
trying
And
their best.
It's more like rods look like rods than cones look like cones.
Okay.
But cones work best in higher light than rods, obviously. They're also capable of finer detail and more rapid image change than rods are due to their faster response time. And finally, they're responsible for giving us color vision. They come in 3 varieties for most of us, and each has a different pigment, which is sensitive to a different wavelength or color of light. And the way this works is that you have a molecule that's called a pigment, and it's sensitive to a particular wavelength or color of light, and once that color of light hits the pigment, it causes a reaction in the in the cone cell or the rod cell, and that causes you to see that color. So, we have these 3 different pigments, which give us 3 different types of cones. There's short, medium, and long wavelength cones, which are sensitive to bluish, greenish, and reddish colored light, respectively. So the activation of more short wavelength cones than long wavelength cones is interpreted by our brains as seeing a more bluish color, and vice versa. Medium will give us green and long will give us red. So the fact that most of us have 3 cones makes us what are called trichromats. So we have trichromatic or 3 color vision. And this is the basis of why TVs and displays typically have 3 subpixel colors. So each pixel is composed of sort of a mosaic of different brightness of each of these 3 colors, red, green, and blue. So interestingly, in 2010, Sharp brought out a new LCD TV called the Quatron, and its main selling point was having 4 subpixel colors, an additional yellow on top of the standard red, green, blue. And this was like a big deal. They claimed that it increased the range of displayable colors and more accurately mimicked how our brain processes color. And, you know, they had a big ad where they were saying that the yellows looked brighter and more vibrant and all this stuff. Whereas in reality, this is inaccurate since most of us are not sensitive to yellow light. Any color we see can be produced with combinations of red, green, and blue.
So anything to sell a TV, you're saying?
Yeah. That extra little yellow subpixel is not doing anyone any good at all.
There is actually a minor improvement in that the red, blue, green LED technology or LCD technology rather is not perfect. Like we're bound by the actual physical limitations of our current technology. So there is like something like a 0.3% improvement in yellow light uptake from that in the color space, which is how many colors it can display. But it's so minor you couldn't distinguish between it with the human eye. So there is an actual improvement, but it's really, really, really useless. There is an alternate version of the 4 subpixel TV, which is actually using the CYMK model. So it uses subtractive light rather than additive, like in RGB, and that would be used for people who are in like graphics design. This was released in 2010.
And the other thing that was noted by one of the competitors of Sharp, the CEO of one of the competitors, he said that it's kind of useless because all of our TV broadcasts and everything don't include the yellow subpixel.
Yeah.
So it's just being made up in the TV.
Yeah, well, what it was doing is it was processing the images as they came in and basically boosted the yellow. So you were like, "Oh, look at how yellow this is."
Yeah, and it just makes everything look more yellow.
But
it's like
you could
sepia tone.
But you can do that with any TV.
Yeah. So while most of us are trichromats, that is, we have 3 different types of cones. Some humans are born with more types of cones. And this translates to an ability to detect more subtle differences in color. Some humans, along with birds, reptiles, fish, amphibians, and insects, are tetrachromatic. So they have 4 cone types with 4 different pigments. This is seen more frequently in women, where this 4th cone, the color pigment, lies somewhere between the red and green detecting cones, so it would be yellowish. There are even pentachromats, who have 5 color pigments, and very, very, very few people have been found with this ability. I've actually heard of only 1. But while trichromats can distinguish between 100 different shades of color, a pentachromat can distinguish between 10 billion different colors.
Yeah, it's pretty logarithmic, isn't it?
That's ridiculous.
Out of all the research they've done to distinguish how sensitive tetrachromats are versus trichromats, it turns out that even with the extra cone, yes, cone.
Yeah, cone.
Then they're not any better at distinguishing between shades than somebody who is trained sensation-wise. Like, so somebody who's trained with color, like works with color every day, they can't outperform a person who's a trichromat and deals with color every day.
Oh, really?
At least so far as we can tell. There may be an effect on a larger scale, but the largest population of tetrachromats we've ever gathered for a study is 9.
Yeah.
So we don't have very big samples. But yes, there's good potential there.
Yeah. And the implication, I guess, is that if you train a tetrachromat or a pentachromat to work with color more frequently, then their ability to distinguish will also increase.
Greater potential.
Right.
Yeah.
So on top of this, though, many organisms perceive ultraviolet light. This includes fish and insects, but humans don't typically see in ultraviolet. This is not because of a lack of photopigment in our cones.
Motivation, lack of motivation, right?
Yes, lack of motivation. And also the fact that the lens in our eye, as well as the cornea, blocks ultraviolet light. But people who, for whatever reason, don't have a lens in their eye, so people who've had cataract surgery or who have a congenital defect in their lens, they can see near UV color as sort of a whitish blue-violet color. And this is likely because all of the cones are sensitive, but the blue cones are a little bit more sensitive. And it's been suggested that Monet, the French Impressionist painter, was influenced by this phenomena. In his later years, he had very significant cataracts, which colored the light he saw sort of a reddish tone, and this was translated into his paintings. So around his later years, he had more, they call it more of a red palette. So he's using more red colors in his paintings. But in 1923, he underwent cataract surgery, and he had the lens of his left eye removed. And after this operation, he repainted some of his paintings with a distinctly more bluish colored palette, which suggests that he was now seeing some of the ultraviolet spectrum. And this is like a really interesting sort of case study over time of how you can monitor it. And using the paintings of, such a famous French Impressionist is kind of intriguing as well. Of course, this all ties to a condition that we're all familiar with called color blindness, which is an inability to perceive color differences due to a lack of a particular type of cone cell. It has nothing to do with being unable to see things, like there's no actual blindness. Like you can still read, you can still do all that stuff. It's just with color. And there are three types of color blindness. There's monochromacy, which is caused by complete absence of cones, and results in a black and white picture with no colors. So it's like watching a black and white TV.
So no cones. So that means you'd be what? Wouldn't it be blurry then?
I think that the rods replace the cones in the fovea.
Okay.
So you still have the resolving power, but you just don't have any color.
Okay.
There's also... Sorry?
I was just affirming, yes, okay.
Oh, okay.
Good. All right.
There's also dichromacy, which is caused by the absence of one type of cone, leaving two types left, right?
That's the super common one, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's where you get red-green color blindness there, and you get, I think, blue-yellow or something like that. There's a couple of different types, and they're all caused by a different type of missing cone. And this leaves you able to see two colors, but not the third.
We should make a distinction that since you are missing one cone, the other cones will actually start to pick up on some of the spectrum that the other ones are neglecting. So what happens is not that they can't see all the colors. We're pretty sure that they can. But what it is that the spectrum is much less resolved. So you can't distinguish as easily between certain colors because the spectrum sort of blurred into one like very like a dull palette.
Yeah, and the other thing is that all these cones are optimally sensitive to their respective colors. That doesn't mean that they're not sensitive at all to the other colors of light. They just won't respond as well. The third type of color blindness is trichromacy, in which no cones are missing, but one of the pigments is altered from its normal sensitivity. It's an impairment rather than a loss. So instead of, a cone responding optimally at a red wavelength, it might respond optimally at a purple wavelength. And that will throw off your vision. So purple light you will now see as more of a reddish tone because that's what your brain is expecting to see. And ultimately, though, we have to understand that we're all colorblind to some extent because we can't perceive the differences between two colors that, say, a pentachromat could, which makes us colorblind relative to them. There's a shrimp called the mantis shrimp, and it has, I believe, 12 different types of cones. And
17.
17.
Oh.
That makes us colorblind relative to them. This is all a relative scale.
And keeping in mind the differences between how many colors or shades you can distinguish between just a tetrachromat and a pentachromat, you can imagine adding 17 layers onto that, how many colors they would be able to see. And if you've seen a mantis shrimp, and you can look it up online right now because I'm sure you're near internet, it is really colorful. So I'm wondering what it would look like for another mantis shrimp to see. Yeah.
And so, color blindness is a human invention, and one that's very, very subjective and, I guess, established by the majority of us, which are trichromats. Personally, I'm interested to see what it would be like to be a pentachromat. Color's one of those things you can't really explain to people. If they have never experienced color, you can't be like, well, it's greenish. You know green. Well, they don't know green. So I'm really interested in that. But anyways, I digress. Ellysa?
Biology obviously affects the way that you see color, like we've discussed, but there's an ongoing debate about whether language also affects thought and the way that we see colors, and to what extent. And it's basically a war that has been waged quite heavily, and there are two main viewpoints that are really, really disagreed. The first is Universalist, and they say that seeing color is a result of biology and not culture. So while words vary between languages, we all experience the same colors and the basic same division of colors. And the relativists will disagree with this and say that because there are so many different terms for colors, different divisions of colors, the phenomenon of seeing color to some degree is culture specific. And the Universalist View was started by Brent Berlin and Paul Kay through their study and their book called Basic Color Terms, Their Universality and Evolution. And they wanted to know which colors languages classified as what we call basic colors, red, green, And in kind of a questionable move of methodology, they decided what a word had to be for a color to be considered basic in the language, without having any knowledge of the language. So they said that the word for color had to be monomorphemic, or consisting of one meme, meaning that it can't be made smaller. Like our blue-gray is not monomorphemic because it can be broken into both blue and gray. The word also had to be monolexemic, or it can't have a suffix, so greenish wouldn't count. It has to be more specific than an ish or anything like put onto the end.
How do they define that, though? How do they say, this is green? How do they know that it's definitely the green?
They relied mainly on translators, and as I'll talk about the criticisms that have been lodged against them, they really didn't interact with the way that the language worked. They just took a translated word and said, oh, well, this word means this in that language, and therefore, so there were problems in the ways that they took a look at the language. So, and like I said, they made up most of their rules before they'd even looked at the languages, which I think is a mistake because languages are really varied. It's hard to.
You should definitely make up rules before you apply or you look at the data. That way, you're not biased by the data.
Well, they continued making up rules as they continued into the data too.
Well, then
so
that
there's
would be
a dual
a
problem. Well, there's a problem because just because a word can be broken up into smaller other words in the language doesn't necessarily mean that speakers wouldn't consider it a basic color word. And that's really what should matter more than whether or not someone who has a totally different linguistic background feels that that would be a basic color word. Because it is dependent on the perception of the people who speak the language. If you're not really taking into account how it works, you're not really understanding it. So, there have been some problems lodged with his methodology for both of those reasons. That he made up rules before, and then he made up rules during. As he went on, he added criteria, like if the word was a recent loan word, it doesn't count. If a color word is also the name of an object that has that color, then it doesn't count. Like ash, for us, is a tree from where we derive the color ash. Personally, I really wish he used translators instead, or asked speakers if their language had a basic set of colors, which it might not, and what that basic set is. Anyway.
So, sorry, is a basic set, for us, red, green, blue, yellow?
A rainbow, yeah.
Blue, yeah.
And then our, differentiations, greenish, bluish, or turquoise, would be considered supplementary to our basic set in his way of looking at it. And what they found is that all languages had words for black and white. If a language had 3 colors, then the third word would be for red. If it had 4 words, then the fourth word would either be for green or yellow. The fifth would be for whichever hadn't been covered by the fourth, so green or yellow again. If a language had a 6th word for a color, it would be blue, and then brown. And then the 8th term would be purple, pink, orange, or gray. So basically he considered that there would be an evolution of language that you'd start with black and white, and then the language would add red, and then either green or yellow, and then either green or yellow again. Then the languages that Berlin and Kay studied had roughly the same focal hue for each color, or there's one shade that all of the languages he studied would agree is red, or would agree is green, for example. Of course,
I wonder why blue didn't come earlier.
Well, there are some pretty good explanations for this. As far as they've purported in their work, the main suggestions are that there are not many blue things to distinguish between while you're starting out in civilizations.
What about the sky?
The sky, exactly. Well, there's nothing about the sky you have to distinguish.
Many languages
In fact, if you
consider blue and green to be the same color. So, like, they'll look up through trees at the sky and think that that's the same color, just different kind of shades.
Light intensity, in fact, it affects the perception of blue and green quite readily. Anything near any languages developed near the equator tend to have blue and green more tightly linked than those further from the equator. But yeah, in fact, if you ask a child that has not been told that the sky is blue, what color the sky is after they know a basic set of colors, they'll more often than not say white rather than blue. Really? That's because our colored. The thought is that our priming by being told that it's blue makes us see it as more blue than it is.
Really?
Yeah.
Very interesting.
I thought so. Sorry about stepping on your toes, Ellysa.
No, it's okay.
I'm familiar with the work, so I was just thought I'd chime in. Okay.
That's good. I didn't understand most of that, so I didn't know most of that, so that's good. I mostly focused on like the criticisms of the study, and shortly after the publication of it, it received pretty wide criticism. And the first was Barbara Saunders, who said that their idea of the evolution of a color language is a typical Eurocentric narrative that everything is filtered through. She says that there's no evidence that says a language necessarily develops in that order. She says that there are problems with the color terms because Berlin and Kay didn't study the language directly. Then Saunders got together with someone called Van Brakel in a different article and pointed out that there's no proof for a neurophysiological color pathway that's specific, which is what the other two had suggested. John Lucy added an idea to the relativist side that both the range of hues of a color word can refer to... Oh, I'm sorry. Let me start that again. That's wrong.
No problem.
This paragraph's awful. Oh, I didn't edit it. I'm sorry.
It's okay. We can edit this.
Okay, good. So John Lucy added an idea to the relativist side that said that both the range of hues of a color and the way in which the color word is used is important. Before, research had was mostly concerned about identifying the color, being able to list it correctly. But he says the additional ways in which a color word can be used to describe things within a language is an important part of understanding how color works in that language. And without that research, we're not getting the full picture. Then Anna Werbicka summed up some criticism of the Universalist theory. She said that in languages that lack a word for color, the speakers don't differentiate between different hues of color. It's also been argued that neurophysiology can't account for many languages. Their seemingly intuition kind of divide between warm and cool colors. Like warm is red and pink, and cool is blue and green. And a lot of languages divide it that way, and there doesn't seem to be any biological basis for that division.
Well, there's a biological basis for everything.
Not that we've discovered. I'm not saying that there isn't one. I'm saying that Werbicka is pointing out that we don't have a full understanding of how color is looked at in biology because we don't have an explanation between the difference between warm and cool colors. I'm not saying that there isn't
so
one.
I
She's saying
think
that there
it's-
could be a deeper interaction between the way that we divide words, the colors by words, and the way that our biology reflects that.
I think she's going for that. If you had someone who was raised in an exclusively room temperature environment and only ever experienced room temperature, they wouldn't have the concept of warm versus cool colors because they would never have experienced warm versus cool things. Is that what you're going for?
No, I don't think so.
No.
No,
Okay.
she's just saying, I don't think there's any research that there's someone who can't differentiate between warm and cool colors. I think
Well, I'm
she's
just
more
saying that
arguing,
she's saying it's not biological, so it's not intrinsic. It has to be somehow
adapted
learned
by
us.
culture. Yeah, yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So it would be learned by like, oh, I know that fire is warm and fire is also red. So warm
Exactly,
equals
exactly.
red,
And
and
cool
then
is like, I
snow
don't
is
know.
cool and it's sort of bluish. So cool
Well, I
equals
think
blue.
that maybe both sides are being a little bit obtuse. The idea that it's not influenced by our environment is kind of nonsense, and the idea that it's definitely not affected by language. I don't think that that research you cited was of that opinion, because they do speak in their research about how the culture was affecting their perception of language, like how blue is only thought of as blue as soon as somebody comes up with a word for blue. So
But they're also talking about a specific biological basis for the development of language and the identification of language in children, following that order, that other people have kind of disagreed with, right? And saying that there is necessarily one color that everyone kind of agrees on is a base color, like a particular hue that is always considered red, or their word for red, which people have taken like criticism.
Oh, certainly, they've made plenty of mistakes, I'm sure, but
Yeah.
I wouldn't discount the research. It's very
No,
interesting.
no,
It's a great starting point.
It's very important and interesting. And I mean, I'm going to say later, most of the current research suggests that it's probably a mixture of the two in ways that neither proponent of either side will really enjoy.
That's what I've gathered from
yeah.
all my research. It seems like there's a lot of cultural basis for color perception, because it's only really used to talk to each other. I mean, and I think it's really clear that the only reason you'd come up with a color name, or any name for that matter, is to help distinguish between things that need distinguishing. You know,
Exactly.
if you're not coming across a lot of blue things, you don't have to worry about it, right? Like I know Plato, was it Plato? No, Homer. Homer never mentioned never once mentioned blue in his works, but he would refer to the sea as like the color of wine.
Yeah, it's a common phrase in, like, I've just read the Odyssey. Wine dark sea is what they call it.
Yeah, wine dark
Yeah.
sea, but
But never blue.
the sea isn't wine dark, or is it?
Unless, I don't know, what color was their wine?
That's true. They actually made wine from blueberries. That was the mistake we were making all along.
Yeah, well, there are particularly interesting case studies of different kinds of languages and what people have classified colors as in the past. For example, the Yeli Dine in Papua New Guinea have 11 basic color names, but they don't have names for some colors on our color wheel. It's not like they have, it's really weird. They have basic colors, and some colors aren't covered, and they just don't distinguish them. They're not subcategories of color they do have a name for, they're just unnamed colors. And like we're talking...
So they just say that color?
I assume. Yeah.
So, like, if I presented them with a red apple and they didn't have a word for red, they would just be...
They would just say it's an apple.
The apple is clear.
Yeah,
Like,
it has
apple
a color,
color.
we just don't have a word for it, kind of thing.
I think they should probably get on the ball.
I suggest red.
I suggest red. Yes, I feel like red could come in handy.
Yeah.
Maybe not like gray. I feel like gray is not that important. Anyway, sorry.
It's okay. So for further case studies, like we were talking about earlier, blue and green distinctions are particularly varied. The Vietnamese have only one word for the colors that we call green and blue. Meaning that they look up, like I said earlier, at the sky through trees where we would see like a great contrast between the green of the leaves and the blue of the sky. They just call it one color. Hebrew, Russian, and Italian count our light blue and dark blue as two very distinct colors that are not shades of each other. Finnish distinguishes between blue and green, but also considers our teal as a distinct color that's in between the two. And then the Komi language considers green just a shade of yellow. The color debate remains largely unsolved, and consensus is said to happen all the time, but it really hasn't. And some more recent suggestion is that it's components of both culture and physiology that must be at play in our color perception. Of course, our naming colors can serve purposes beyond just identifying. We use emotional attachment when naming the colors of products to try to appeal to consumers, like lipstick, wall paint, car colors. They're particularly notorious. For example, I looked at my lipstick collection, and I have the shades of Pink Truffle and Alarm in lipstick, and they're as different as you imagine. Alarm, like this big, bright, dark red, and Pink Truffle, really soft, like mild kind of pink. Of course, what really concerns me is I have a color called Asia, and I don't know what I'm supposed to get from that. Like an entire continent, just in this kind of like light pink color, and yeah,
I was going to say, what color is it?
It's light like this pink. Light kind of pink.
It's Asia colored.
Yeah, it's Asia colored, obviously.
What's unclear about that?
It's a little metallic. It's one of my favorites, and every time I look at it, I'm like, oh my god, what do you... I took...
See, I would have thought Asia would be like a deep, deep red color.
Really?
I don't know why. Maybe like, maybe because I'm thinking of like Memoirs of a Geisha, how they had the like pale face and then the really dark lipstick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we each have, like, different associations with colors, right? And it's particularly worrisome to try to associate them with race, because, or in places, because you can make some really awful assumptions. Like, I just took a visual arts course, and they discussed race and crayon color. How children were taught that the flesh color is, like, for white people, right? Although Crayola has corrected their mistakes since, and they have a whole, like, a package of skin-toned crayons where you can get, like, just a variety of skin colors that kind of match what we actually have. But we have to be careful with like the implications that we can make from naming different colors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm for naming things no nonsense. Let's get hexadecimal color codes going. Well, here's exactly what's in the color. Now do it. Like that. Why do we have to say anything more? If I say FF4L, L's not hexadecimal. Don't listen to me.
Well, people like selling a product are never going to go on board with you on that one.
If we make it illegal, they will.
I think that Crayola for crayons, they should not have names. They should just have all, like, you can see the color. Why bother naming it?
Yeah, it's a little limiting imagination-wise, right?
Yeah.
Like, they don't, like, when you get Lego, they don't have, like grass written on the side of green blocks, right?
Exactly.
But what I didn't understand until we read about it is that people are very emotionally attached to like crayon colors. Like they have over a period of years, Crayola has taken some colors out, changed some names, put some new things in. People are very upset. Like I think the color Sierra is one. Either it was removed or added and people did not like that. Or like there's a bluish green that they took out because they thought it was too ambiguous and people are kind of upset or something. There's a whole bunch of weird like ideas and like emotional attachments to crayon colors. So
well, I know I get really upset when a crayon says gray and it comes out brown. I'm sorry, but that's unacceptable. It happens all the time.
Does it?
What's wrong? Yeah, every single time I use a crayon, and I'm like, oh, perfect, gray. Oh, brown on the page? That's fair.
That's not okay.
Yeah. I'm fine. Just call it brown. Call it what it is.
Yeah, I learned that the red that I want is not actually red. It's red-orange. I always want like a lighter red whenever I'm looking for red. So I learned to look for the red-orange. My red-orange in my pencil crayon case was like an inch long because I used it so much.
I think that means you're a serial killer. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the rainbow, the history of the rainbow, and also I'm going to talk about a little bit of Isaac Newton in the end there. First off, I want to talk about how it relates to ancient myths. First off, in Roman mythology, the rainbow is considered to be the path made by a messenger, Iris, between earth and heaven. Similarly, in Norse mythology, there's also the Bifrost Bridge, which connects Earth to Asgard, their like heaven godly area, right? Asgard, I think, is only for gods, and then there's something below that for people who die one big party, I'm pretty sure. Norse mythology is the best mythology.
See, all my Norse mythology comes from either Age of Mythology, the real-time strategy game,
or the Thor movie. Oh god, you got to look into it. It's a great time. But yeah, in the Old Testament of Abrahamic religions, you name which one, in Genesis, Yahweh puts a rainbow in the sky as a promise that he will never destroy the world again with a flood. In particular, he doesn't say he'll do just a flood. Not
Earthquakes
I
are
won't
still
flood
open.
the entire world again.
The leprechaun's secret hiding place for his pot of gold is said to be at the end of a rainbow, which is interesting because since a rainbow is an optical effect, which depends on the location of the person, the closer you get to a rainbow, it stays the same distance away from you.
Mm-hmm.
So it's, very poetic, chasing treasure and whatnot. And interestingly, the Mormon founder and prophet Joseph Smith stated that the second coming of Christ would not occur in any year in which a rainbow is seen. So,
Okay.
never then?
Yeah.
I'll just make sure I go out with a garden hose on mist mode every year.
Yes,
Stave off the apocalypse.
January 1st tradition. We just need one person every year to do it. So yeah, and in many New Age religions, the rainbow holds some value representing the 7 chakras. So they claim, that there's some sort of pools of energy, and since there's 7 basic colors in the rainbow, technically it represents all colors of visible light, but the 7 main bands are, match up nicely to their 7 chakras. So I want to talk about the rainbow flag as well. I thought there might be a good history here, and it's actually been used constantly throughout history. It's very prolific, and it's only recently it's been taken as an LGBT pride symbol. But the American Revolutionary War, Thomas Paine proposed that the rainbow flag be used as the maritime flag to signify neutral ships. So that would be like the white flag, It'd be rainbow. I guess people just generally think of rainbow as like a peace kind of thing. Because
because I would think at least that since nations all have their flags with distinct colors, having all the colors signifies that everyone's included.
That makes sense. That is a fair thought. Okay, I'm with you there. And probably has some influence of the Abrahamic religions as well, since the pact with God, in this case, would be the one...
right.
Right. Yeah, so the rainbow flag in Italy was first used in a peace march in 1961, and this started the peace movement. And basically, it's the idea is to stop the use of nuclear weapons. And there's actually the peace flag generally for most countries is the country's language with white text saying peace over the rainbow flag, which is generally reversed rainbow. Like the rainbow, I believe, goes with red at the top instead of bottom. And that distinguishes the peace flag from the LGBT pride flag.
Oh.
Interesting.
Yeah, the LGBT pride flag was changed from the same configuration as the peace symbol to be distinct. I don't think anybody caught that, though.
No, I don't think so.
It was originally used in 1978. The San Francisco artist Gilbert Baker was the one who initially designed the flag, and the flag was initially created with 8 colors, where it was actually trimmed to only have 6 later. But it actually, the justification of the flag, which I didn't have a lot of luck finding any kind of a clarification for, but apparently Gilbert Baker said the colors represented these different things, which is pretty wooey, by the way. It's not very good. It makes me like the flag less, is what I'm saying. Well, the red represents life, orange healing, yellow sunlight, green is nature, blue is harmony, purple is spirit.
But, those things have hardly anything to do with his LGBT.
Oh, I know.
What?
I know. I have no idea what it is, but
okay.
the two removed colors, pink and turquoise, represented sexuality. for pink and magic for turquoise.
Oh.
So
Well, I
it's
get
a little
pink,
it's
but-
a little hard to get past that. You can't justify that beyond wooiness. But I mean, like, nobody knows that, so I don't have any
Yeah.
problem with the flag now. I'm just saying it makes me like the history a little less now that there's magic involved. But there's actually like a whole bunch of different cases where the flag was used either temporarily or permanently for a movement, always related to something, almost always related to something good. There was like some stuff about like genocide, but don't worry about those ones. But yeah, so in fact, we used to think about the rainbow that it was sort of a corruption. So it's a little bit beyond, or a little bit before. We thought of it as a peace symbol. We thought of it as more of a corruption of purity. Back when Isaac Newton was 23, in the year 1665, he was home for the summer shortly after getting his degree from Trinity College. And he was home because there was a plague. It's not like summer break. It was... There's a plague. Let's not get the plague and go home for a little while. And his mother was really excited about this. She was finally going to have a son to come home and help on the farm, but he had other plans. So his plans included discovering all science. He went basically on a 2-year discovery spree, during which time he discovered much of what we know about calculus, optics, and gravitational theory. I mean, before we figured out all that new stuff about gravitational theory. But one of the things that he asked himself was, what are colors and where do they come from? And for a while, we knew that prisms broke up rainbows, or broke up light, rather, into rainbows. And the thought there was that the white light that was given from God, and it was considered like tainted by the prism. The prism was like not breaking it into its pieces, but actually like adding something that was corrupting the white light.
It's like contaminating it.
Exactly. So what he decided to do was cut a very small hole in his blinds, and this was his like laser or his like light. So what he'd wait for the sun to align with this hole in his blinds. And then he'd have the beam of light going into his room, and he aligned the one prism, which was very hard to get at the time, to split the light, and then he would actually align another prism to just capture the blue light. And what that did is he assumed when the blue light went in, it would also corrupt the blue light, creating another rainbow, but it didn't. It only gave him blue light back. So he knew at that point that it wasn't that it was breaking, or that it was corrupting it, but it was breaking it into its constituent pieces. And that was sort of the like unweaving of the rainbow that he's so famous for. John Keats, an English romantic poet, much later wrote fairly harshly about Isaac in a poem because Isaac Newton had, quote, removed all the poetry of the rainbow. So he wasn't really happy about Isaac Newton explaining this away. But I guess he just lost a little bit of imagery that he could have used in his poem. But I think it was a lot more important to, explain the rainbow, because it got rid of the ideas of this like white light being a gift from God, and more so brought the rainbow down to earth. Yeah. But earlier experiments with Isaac Newton, where his first thought with his like research into light was he wanted to like try to poke at colors. So he actually got a knife and he placed it in between his like eye socket and his eye, and he pushed on his eye. He pushed on his eye with the blade, the flat edge of the blade, and when like have you ever like pressed on your eyes, like rubbing them, and then you see all these colors?
Yeah.
So he got that consistently by pushing on that, and he was able
what
to.
that is? You're physically stimulating your rods and cones to fire.
There you go. So and then he realized that was getting him nowhere, so he stopped stabbing his eye.
Well, I'm glad. He could have been blind.
Yeah, I'm glad he got his hand on two prisms. That was much better.
And so eventually he not only, like, he used two prisms and he used one to split the light, and then he used the other one to put it back together into white light, right?
Exactly, yeah. So he was able to remake the gift from God and also prove that it wasn't just contaminating it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really neat.
And then this notion that Keats came up with, that he removed all the poetry of the rainbow, is like, it's quite pervasive. Artistic people tend to criticize science, and I've experienced it personally from, like, just my family. They're saying, like, oh, science takes the beauty out of everything. I hear it so often.
It can be popular, but you also have to understand that a lot of that comes from the Romantic poets, like John Keats and others, who were at the same time as the Enlightenment, were kind of a response to them and wanted to return to nature. And some people would agree with that, especially the Romantic poets, but not everybody. Like, art can also revel in science, and science can add to ways of making art. They're not necessarily always standing opposed.
Yeah, no doubt.
And that's what Richard Dawkins' book Unweaving the Rainbow is about. It's about finding the artistic and, like, I guess, aesthetic beauty in science.
There's still beauty in explanations, I think.
Of course.
When, like, once we figured out perspective, our paintings didn't look like crap anymore, and we were and we understood that better, and everything got better. So there you go. There's science helping along art. Because have you seen free perspective drawings of buildings?
Art doesn't always want realism. Art doesn't always look to being, like, exactly as reality. So I wouldn't say that they were worse before perspective, but it certainly gave us a new avenue into exploring other kinds of art.
I guess
it could look more realistic.
I personally value art based on its ability to recreate reality. So that is just my thought.
So basically all art is nullified by photography.
Well, there have been some artists who have used photography specifically to point out that it's not exactly a realistic representation of art that way either. I wish I could remember.
I realize that my position on that is flawed. That is my intrinsic position on it.
All right, as long as you realize it.
Yeah, like when I look at, like, a new, like, 3D movie, and it's like, wow, they decided to go a little more cartoony on this. Why did they ruin the film? Why did they?
Archer isn't going live action, and stop criticizing for it.
I mean, they so could. Okay, anyway, you guys want to go to the game section then?
Yeah.
Alright, welcome to the game section. Let's go to Gap Facts. So, this is the part of the show where we give you bite-sized pieces of trivia that you can tell to your friends really easily. So I guess I will go first. Did you know that J.R.R. Tolkien and Hitler fought against each other in the Battle of Somme during World War I? So maybe they didn't, like, punch each other, but they are on the opposing sides.
I
got really excited there. Like, seriously? Was there, like, a boxing
So
match?
that's kind of cool. They probably didn't know who each other were. They probably didn't have anything worthwhile at that point. But yeah.
I found a Gap fact that's kind of related. I know they're not supposed to be related, but it's kind of related. So many artificial color additives are prohibited by law in like basic foods, right? Like, I'm not talking about processed foods, but basic produce and stuff like that. So farmers add marigold petals to their chicken feed as a natural color enhancer to give their egg yolks like a very sunny yellow bright hue.
Oh, yeah.
That's cool.
Okay. Yeah, I know that in Europe the egg yolks tend to be like more dull or pinkish, if I'm not mistaken.
And well, I think it depends also on the variety of chicken, right?
Oh, fair enough. Yeah.
I'm sure they have a different strain of chicken laying eggs in Europe.
My Gap fact is that, it's very depressing. The Black Plague killed 75 to 200 million people in the past. And
wow.
Indeed, is not entirely gone. If you've heard the recent outbreak in, Madagascar.
Oh, right.
Which, infamously from the game Pandemic, is impossible to infect with plague, which is why it's kind of ironic and made such big news. There has been Black Plague outbreaks. They're never serious. Most people have an immunity to it now anyway.
Isn't it, like, super treatable with modern medicine, too?
Yeah, like, you still die from it quite a lot if you don't catch it. And it's still spread kind of fairly easily, but it's not a death sentence anymore.
It's not the Black Death anymore. It's more like the light gray death.
It was mostly borne out by the very poor hygiene that when it was a big deal, it was because it was very poor living conditions and poor hygiene.
Yeah. Whereas today, not so much.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's cool. Now I've got a quiz for you, and I'm calling this quiz the complimentary quiz. Because complimentary you get it?
Yeah, get
it. So I'm going to pit you two against each other. So at each level of question, I'm going to give you the choice between two question categories related to color or vision or sight or something like that. Something broadly related to the topic at hand. And whoever gets it first, you can keep guessing. You just spam guesses, that's fine. Whoever gets it first, we'll get to pick the next topic. And if no one can get it right, I get to pick the question.
Okay.
So the first question is fairly easy, and chime in once you know the answer. The first person to get this gets to pick the next question, so put it in favor. There are 7 levels, including this first one. Okay. All right, so what is the complement of the color yellow?
Blue.
No.
Green.
No. Come
Orange.
on, this is great. No.
What?
Red.
Opposite side of the color wheel.
Purple.
Complement of yellow.
Purple.
Purple? Yes, purple. Yes, it is purple.
Okay, good.
So,
Okay.
all right.
Figured it out.
What are the two? Yellow and purple? That's
Yellow
what
and
it was?
purple, yes. Easter
Yeah.
colors. So,
of
all right. So you get to pick between the two categories. How resolved, ? And Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Both Keegan and I have read a lot of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, so I will have to go with the first one instead.
Oh, bad choice. All right.
Oh,
if 2020 vision is the most common vision resolution, what is the theoretical maximum of human biological resolution? So that means how many cones can you fit into the space provided?
Oh, man.
So you're going to give me an answer in the term 20 : a number.
2100.
Do you know how this works, Keegan?
It's like
smaller, better.
23.
Oh, right. Okay.
No.
21.
No.
22.
No.
2020. No, 2010 then.
No.
20.5.
No.
20. I don't know.
Oh my god. All right, I'm going to give you each 2 more guesses.
0.1.
Nope.
25.
No, 28.
I don't know. Oh,
28.
Okay.
So pounds of pressure per eye, or lesser known colors, is one I get to pick. So I'm going to say I want to go with pounds of pressure per eye. So we've got 0 for Keegan, 1 for Ellysa. What eye disease group is marked by an increase in eye pressure?
Glaucoma.
Yes, Keegan got it first.
What? Oh.
At least on my end,
So
lag
close.
might be doing you a disservice.
That's okay.
All right, Keegan, you get to pick between 2 topics: subtractive color models and country colors.
Can I pick Arthur Conan Doyle?
No.
I want to hear that question.
The question was, what is the name of the first Sherlock Holmes story?
Study in Scarlet.
Yes, that was the
See,
answer.
that's why I didn't pick that.
All right.
Okay. What was
subtractive
the
color
thing?
models or country colors?
Country colors.
All right. From left to right, what are the colors of the Italian flag?
Oh,
Green, white, orange.
Not
No,
quite.
green, white,
No,
red.
orange, white, green.
Yes, red. You got it,
it's red.
Keegan.
Shit.
Sorry, it's
Why?
red.
I was thinking Ireland.
All right. So, okay, so that's 2 for Keegan, 1 for Ellysa. All right. So, here are the 2 categories. Keegan, the median rainbow and Canada's true colors.
What's the median rainbow? Can you elaborate on that?
No.
Those are the
That's the
titles.
hint. Come on.
What do you mean? How could I possibly?
All right, I'll go with the median rainbow since I'm curious.
All right. This might be easy, so you gotta wait till I finish the last word to answer.
Okay.
If only counting the 7 main colors of the rainbow, what is the middle color? You can all answer as quick as you want. Spam colors if you
Green.
want.
Yellow.
Yes, green. Alyssa got it. All right.
Aha.
So that is 2 for 2. All right. You get to choose between. There's 2 questions left, by the way. So you get to choose between Scottish pride and dinosaur stains.
I really don't like dinosaurs, so we're gonna go with the Scottish.
All right. So here's the question. What is the actual name for the pattern commonly known as plaid?
Kilt?
No.
No, well, I know
I
it's
know
on a
this.
kilt. I just, Argyle. No, that's a different pattern.
No.
Do you know it, Keegan?
I do know it.
You can say it.
I can't remember it.
Well, then you don't know it.
know. That's the definition of knowing. Okay.
Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue.
Square something? Maybe
No.
like lines and squares?
I know
Oh,
plaid
yeah.
is a subtype of this thing.
Oh.
No. Plaid
No,
is actually
plaid
plaid is that thing, that sort of satchel that goes across the
Oh,
person's
right.
body.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's a
Oh.
type of clothing that's almost always, if not always, given this pattern type, which is why it's become so associated.
Can you
So
give
when
us
I
the
said
first
kilt, It
letter?
was still wrong?
Yeah.
What's the
so
first letter?
I'll give you the first letter. You guys get equal chance to answer this. Okay.
Okay.
It starts with a T.
Oh, God.
No.
The first 2 letters.
No.
A T-
If you can't get this, then I get to pick the next one. The last question.
I can't remember.
I don't know.
All right, it's tartan.
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 Urgh.
Tartan.
Urgh.
Oh, okay. I thought you'd know that.
I knew
Okay.
that. I freaking knew that.
All right, so the next 2
If my
categories
sister
are...
listens to this, she'll be like, "It's tartan. Tartan. Why aren't you saying tartan?"
I'm sure plenty
What's
of
wrong
people
with
are
you?
yelling. So the next 2 questions are viewing angle and learn by colors. So the viewing angle is what I'm going to go with. And what is the name for the property of something to change color when viewed from different angles?
Oh.
This is commonly used to describe gems.
Oh.
A cut? Or no, well, the name for the...
This is
The
the property of
property?
the material, yeah.
Oh.
Is it like brilliance or something?
No.
No.
No, this would be like
Luminescence? No.
Ooh.
Luminosity? What's the other one? Glow? Or...
I have no clue.
Man, I guess I made the quiz too hard. Sorry, guys. So it's 2 versus 2, and the actual answer is iridescence.
shit.
iridescence.
That was
This
close.
is-
What's
Yes.
what's the other question? We need a tiebreaker.
You need a tiebreaker? We'll go through
Yeah, we
the
need a
unanswered ones
tiebreaker.
until we break at the tie.
All right.
All right. I'm gonna go with the harder ones first. Lesser known colors. This is one you can get for sure. What color of the rainbow is the color chiffon closest to? Chiffon's also a type of fabric, but it's also...
Saffron, and it's yellow.
Yes, it is.
Oh.
Alyssa takes the cake. All right, you get
Aha.
it.
I was gonna say orange too.
It was a good game, Keegan. It's pretty...
Yeah.
pretty
What did you say it's actually pronounced?
nice. Saffron, I think.
I actually looked at the
I-
pronunciation before we started the show,
Really?
Is that like
Maybe
saffron?
I'm just...
Chiffon, like Chiffon.
Huh.
Oh. Well,
I mean,
maybe
this
I'm
is-
just, like, from a different language or something.
Well, maybe you're saying the
Oh,
anglicized version, but
Oh,
that was the
maybe,
French
yeah.
accent version that I was using. Of course,
Oh.
without a French accent. Anyway. All right, that's the show. Email comments and questions to mindthegaphosts@gmail.com. And the next show will be called Whirlwind. Subscribe to us on YouTube, iTunes, Double Twist, or the podcast feed of your choice. And also be sure to like or rate us depending on your platform. Thanks for listening.